What's happening? Welcome back to another episode of the N.A.P, the Nerf Herders Assemble podcast. If you've been watching lately, you know that Seth is on vacation. So I have brought my best friend in the world, Ali Roby, here to guest co-host with me tonight. How's it going, Ali?
Not too bad. What's going on?
Not much. It's Tuesday. My gosh, my Monday this week. It was a Monday for sure. But today's a Tuesday. So how's your Tuesday going?
Oh, work and work. So great.
Yeah, so great. All right. Well, at least you're honest about it, right?
Hey.
Well, we've got a few things to talk about tonight. We're going to do a review of a movie. We're going to talk about some date changes for some movies. We're going to look back and celebrate some history of some movies. Yeah, we have a nice little chunk of stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you: have you got a chance to see the 2020 Invisible Man movie?
I have not. I've heard good things.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen it yet. I heard it's really creepy in the beginning, and then it gets less so.
Well, it's more of a sci-fi thriller, and I like sci-fi thrillers. I like technological based stuff, and I believe this was the last movie that I saw in the theater.
Okay.
But the reason why I bring it up is because it has topped the box office this past weekend, 16 weeks after the release. So some movie theaters are slowly starting to open back up, and this is one of the films that's still playing. Even though it was released digitally, it's still being shown at some of the theaters that are opening back up. And I just think that's amazing that 16 weeks later, in the middle of the summer, a movie that came out all the way back in March topped the box office. So
yeah, that is pretty crazy. I mean, probably because of everything that's going on, like not everybody wanted to spend what you had to spend to rent a movie. And it's almost like it just came out, if you think about it, for a lot of people. So that could be it. Interesting.
I mean, people did pay for it digitally, but not everybody went that route, especially since it wasn't necessarily the cheap way to do it. So, but apparently right now, see, I'm reading this article from Screen Rant. It says, while the majority of theaters across the U.S. are still closed, numerous drive-ins are open, and some theaters in states like Georgia and Texas has reopened. Roughly 988 theaters are currently open. And yeah, The Invisible Man grossed almost 400,000 over the weekend, which is just adding to its. It cost $7 million for them to make it, and they've just been, Blumhouse knows how to make movies on the cheap and make money on them. So good on you, Blumhouse, for making this work. So. Anyway, that's all. I just saw that pop up, and I was like, "Oh, we should praise them on that." So,
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
But talking about movies on digital, this was a movie that was set to come out. Hey, you stop snoring so hard! I got the dogs in the background. This was a movie that was set to come out in theaters, but they released it digitally. It's Judd Apatow's new movie. The King of Staten Island with Pete Davidson. And they dropped that over the weekend, and I got a chance to see it. And I really liked the trailer, and I'm a big Pete Davidson fan. And so I was really stoked to see this. And I also like a lot of Judd Apatow's movies. Of course, as soon as I say that, I forget the names of all of his movies, but the 40-Year-Old Virgin was obviously a classic. But I really liked Trainwreck. What was the Forgetting Sarah Marshall? I thought was a great movie. it was funny. It had some drama in it. But Judd Apatow knows how to, in my opinion, knows how to balance that out really well, as far as putting some humor in there, but putting some drama that I think the common man can relate to. And I thought this movie was full of it. Do you know much about Pete Davidson? Are you a fan of Pete Davidson?
I know him from SNL. I will say I'm not a huge fan of him on SNL. I believe he's played some minor roles in some other movies that I may or may have not seen. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't get his brand of funny all the time. He does a lot of those like songs and stuff, and they're not terrible. So I watched the trailer and I wasn't sure. Like I love to hear your thoughts on it, because I'm just kind of wondering, like, on the plot. The plot seems, just from the trailer to me, that it would be pretty, like, predictable. Like, you kind of know everything that's going to happen. I wondered if you found that to be true, or if there's some good twist in there, because I like not being able to guess how the movie's going to end. I feel like I could guess it from the trailer, but like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this movie is more of it's more of like a day in the life of. Like, there wasn't, it wasn't like super bad, where there was it was these kids and but they had a goal in mind, to bring the alcohol to the party or something like that. This was just kind of like, it didn't really have a twist. It didn't really have a, this is what it's leading up to. It was just kind of, this is the life of this guy, and it's not autobiographical, but it relates to Pete Davidson's real life. I've been a fan of him since I saw him on YouTube. Somebody captured him on a comedy stage when he was 16. He's been doing comedy for a while. He actually was in Trainwreck, and that's how he got in touch with Judd Apatow's people, and that's also how he got on SNL, was his work on Trainwreck. Okay. And he definitely has his own brand of comedy, and it's mostly self-deprecating comedy. Like, he knows he has issues. He has Crohn's disease in real life, so he's got a lot of depression in real life. He lost his dad in 9/11. His dad was a firefighter in real life and died in 9/11, and that probably messes with the person, and his release is comedy, even though it's not always agreeable comedy with other people. But this is basically, I mean, it's the movie is what it looked like in the trailer. His sister's going off to college. He's 23, 24. He's still living at home with his mom. He's making bad decisions. He's hey, calm yourself over there. I can hear you. He's making bad decisions. I'm not talking to you, Dustin. I'm talking to the dogs. He's making bad decisions. In the beginning of the movie, he's hanging out with his friends, and he's trying to convince his friends to let him give him another tattoo, and they're all like, no. And this kid, this like 10-year-old kid,
pretty bad.
Oh yeah, they're bad. Now, he does have some talent, but most of them are bad. And this 10-year-old kid walks up to them, and he convinces the 10-year-old kid to let him give him a Punisher tattoo.
No.
And all of his friends are like, stop. And he's like, no, the kid said, he asked the kid, do you give your legal consent? And the kid says yes. So the kid's 10 years old.
He doesn't have legal consent.
Right. And you as an audience member are like, no, stop. Don't do this. And the kid, he gets like one line, and the kid freaks out and runs away. And the dad hunts him down, and the dad's played by Bill Burr, and cusses him out and cusses his mom out, who's played by Marissa Tomei, who plays, in My Cousin Vinny and Peter Parker's aunt in the current version of Spider-Man. Cusses them out and says, you're going to pay for whatever, laser to get this off. The then feels bad and starts dating the mom, and Pete Davidson has to deal with it. So it's very much, if that's what you got from the trailer, that's what the movie is. And it's about Pete Davidson trying to deal with his mom dating another firefighter. Him struggling with thinking it's selfish for a person that has that type of job to have a family.
Trying to find himself in it.
Yeah. And it was just more of a day in the life of drama, and with some comedy dropped in. And I really I'm a big Bill Burr fan, and I'm a big Pete Davidson fan. And he actually has some layers in the movie. There's a point that they show it a little bit in the trailer where he's just messed up, and he thinks about committing suicide and just kind of closes his eyes while he's on the highway and thinks maybe this is when it happens, and then freaks out and stops himself. But and basically he lashes out like a lot of people do, and he just keeps on lashing out until he gets some tough love, and until he finds himself on the streets and needs to grow up. And I mean, he does a lot of frustrating things in the film, but he's a really likable character in the film. And, combine that with the knowledge that he does have Crohn's disease in real life, and he did lose his father, who was a firefighter in real life. And the knowledge that he does have a lot of things in the public eye, and he does have a depression that he's very vocal about. It was easy for me to feel for him, both as an actor and a real life person, and as a character in the story. So, I enjoyed it.
Well, that sounds good. So, like, how do you feel like, is this really, I guess I don't know for sure, is this one of his, like, breakout movie roles, really? I mean, he's been a minor character in some stuff. Has he really been a main character like this before?
Yeah, no, this is definitely his first like starring role. I think his breakout was in in Trainwreck, but it was a very small, like, he impressed people more in the industry than people on the outside. And then that's what got him on SNL, and that's what brought Judd Apatow back to do something with him here. But yeah, this is his first like starring role.
Okay.
And
so do you feel like this kind of film, it sounds like you feel like it fits him as an actor, as a comedian, maybe. For me, when I think of who I've seen transfer over from SNL into film, and again, I don't know what timelines are for people in terms of when they were on SNL and if it launched their career or not. I'm just going off of careers like sure. Adam Sandler or Eddie Murphy or even Chris Farley. Like, a lot of them, go from SNL into movies, and they kind of do mostly comedies. Now, Adam Sandler has done a few more serious films, but he's known for his comedy. So this being a more like starting out, not necessarily leaning on that comedy as much. How do you feel about that kind of switch from what we normally see?
Sure. And I think, yeah, that's usually been the old template, but we have seen people like Adam Sandler, progress over into drama roles. But yeah, they initially did comedy. I liken this a lot to Bill Hader, who was really big on SNL, and he's done a couple comedies, but he's done more dramas. In fact, he's still doing that HBO show Barry, which is has comedic moments, but is more of a drama.
It's like a dark drama, right? I've heard really good things about that. My husband is Dustin's a huge Bill Hader fan. I'm surprised we haven't watched it yet, honestly.
Well, it's an amazing show, and it's got Henry, what's his face in it? Henry, gosh darn it. Winkler, the Fonz is in it as well.
The Fonz.
Yeah, but one of Bill Hader's first movie was The Skeleton Twins, and that was a drama about some siblings and everything. And Bill Hader is the one that actually got Pete Davidson on Trainwreck, and then got Pete Davidson on SNL. So I don't know if he was the mentor in getting to this point, but I feel like their paths are very similar. And I really appreciate all of Bill Hader's drama works. And so, and like I said, I mean, Judd Apatow, he does mostly comedies, but there's a lot of times in those comedies that it gets into some real drama. And I just felt like this, it could have been more of a comedy, but it was definitely, but it just, you know, it felt like it wasn't a stretch for Pete Davidson to play this character because it's so much based off of him. I mean, he's from Staten Island. He lost his dad. He's got Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
He smokes a lot of weed.
Yeah.
And he really does have a lot of tattoos on him. And so, you know, it didn't feel like he was making this big break from character. And just felt like
this is just who I am.
Yeah, but it also didn't feel like it was like feel sorry for me either. It wasn't an autobiographical film like, say, Shia LaBeouf's Honey Boy, which was another, you know, drama, but that was an actual autobiographical film about Shia's, you know, a young time in Hollywood. So it felt like that. Like it had funny moments, but it was a you know, a day in the life of drama type. And I can appreciate those type of films.
Okay. So would you say that it kind of goes a lot along the lines of a more artsy way of telling someone's life story in a way? Sure. Like, I'm just trying to think like the movie that Eminem was supposed to star in, that was supposed to be like a metaphor for his like life. The boxer movie.
Oh, the boxer movie that Jake Gyllenhaal was in. Yeah. Southpaw, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably more on the like artsy. I mean, if you want to say artsy way of telling someone's story, but maybe this finds its way somewhat in the middle. Like it's not autobiographical, but
right. Yeah. If it wasn't Judd Apatow directing, I would say this is like an indie film. It definitely has like an indie film. You know, good storytelling vibe to it, but it's from Apatow. And I think had it gone out to the theaters, it probably wouldn't have made a ton of money, but it wasn't made for a lot of money. So it probably would have made back what it had. And I know a lot of people are either going to say, hey, I'm a fan of his, so I'm going to go see it, or I'm not. But I think it served its purpose. It was entertaining for me. It made me feel for the character, and that's usually a win in my book if I can feel for the character, even if the character's making mistakes. So yeah,
fair enough.
So for those watching, listening live or after the fact, have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? It's currently out there on digital to rent. So just another example of the changing landscape of Hollywood releases, whether or not it's profitable for them to release these digitally or not. It's a whole conversation around there.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about though Hollywood, we have some big changes that happened over the last week. 4 major films got new dates. If you've been listening to the podcast for the last couple weeks, we've been talking about how Christopher Nolan really wanted his movie Tenet to be the movie that brought people back into the cinemas. This is the first time they've budged their film. Most films this year have already gone through one set or one round of changes to their dates, but Tenet was always scheduled to come out on July 17th. And before Russell Crowe's movie said they're going to come out on July 1st, this was the big one that everybody was looking for towards to see, is this the one that's going to get people to come back out in theaters?
Right.
And they started their ad campaign a couple weeks ago. They released a new trailer. They've been releasing some new images, but not hardcore advertising yet for this film. And then last week we found out that they are actually going to push it out to July 31st. So not a big push out, but they are pushing it out a little bit. all the theaters around here are still closed except for one, the Woodstock Theater. I think it's the Woodstock Theater, the 8 Theater, like the dollar cheap theater off Center. That is open right now.
It's open.
Yeah.
The one in Bellevue is still doing the drive-in style movies, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is that's a lot of people have been doing. There's a drive-in that's about to come out near Valley. But this is the one near your work is the only one that's currently open for people to go inside. But they're projecting that most theaters are going to be open by mid-July. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, I'm guessing they just feel like there's going to be more theaters opening 2 weeks later down the road in July, so they push it out to the end of July. Do you think this is a smart move? Do you think they should have pushed it out farther? What are your thoughts?
Good question. It's hard to say because like everything is such a big unknown right now. I can see like the hesitancy of wanting to release too soon. So, because you won't get those big opening weekend numbers. And really, if you can open at the right time, you could probably do really well because everybody's going to want to go to the theater, as soon as they can because everybody's going stir crazy. So I can kind of get along with what they're saying. I think maybe this week as a release date might be too soon. There's a lot of states that are kind of going back into, having high spikes of cases and stuff. And so that, maybe is a trigger for wanting to push out a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to jump on as soon as they open. They're going to be going to movies. And there's going to be some that might be a little bit more cautious. So I don't know. I think it was a good move. I think kind of as states are starting to open up a little bit more, giving yourself a couple more weeks of a lead might be a good case just to see how things go.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's not going to lose its draw.
Well, I mean, I think this is probably Christopher Nolan's most complicated movie that he's ever put out. I mean, I remember when the trailers dropped for Inception and you had those crazy visuals. And even though people knew that this was probably going to be a complicated movie, you had those amazing visuals of the city flipping over on itself. Right. And people are just like, I don't understand what's going on, but I got to see this movie.
Right.
And I love the actors in Tenet. We've got Denzel Washington's son, who I've been digging on Ballers. We've got Edward from Twilight. What's his name? Oh my gosh! Why am I suddenly blanking on
Patterson? Something Patterson.
Yes. Robert Pattinson. He's in this. And he's got a fun accent in it. I love the actors. I'm very excited for the film, but I'm a diehard Nolan fan, but I'll be honest, when I see that trailer, unlike when I said, I don't know what's going on with Inception, but the visuals are amazing and I'm going to be there day one. All I can say is, I don't know what's going on in Tenet. I don't like the time travel, or it's not time travel. It's like time reversal. It looks interesting, but so far there's been nothing in the trailers that were like, make my jaw drop or anything like that. And I think probably a lot of people are wondering, I think most people know that Nolan is a master filmmaker and great storyteller, but I think they haven't put a lot of advertising into it. But they must have their finger on the pulse of these local theaters because, they've said before that it doesn't matter if all the theaters in the Midwest are open. If key cinemas, key cities like New York and Atlanta and LA aren't open, that's where they make all their money.
Right.
So I'm sure that this was more of a strategic decision, thinking, you know, probably working with people that know what phase those cities are and when they're planning on upping their phase. Like we just launched into phase 3 in Nebraska, and that's changed things. So I'm sure it was more strategic like that, but it's only 2 weeks, so it's not pushed out a crazy amount. And I guess they're going to be putting Inception back in theaters on the original date of July 17th. So maybe just to get you in the mood. I don't think this is related to Reception.
A Nolan film. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I would just go to the theater for like a Christopher Nolan movie marathon. I could watch all of his films.
Pretty much.
So, but that caused a ripple effect. So Tenet is coming out a little later in July. WB's next big film was Wonder Woman, which was supposed to come out in August, has now been pushed back to October 2nd.
I know, that bums me out. I am so excited for that movie. Loved the first one. And I've loved the advertising that they've done.
Me too.
For this, the 80s theme and the all gold suit that she's wearing. I know that's from the comics. I haven't read the comics, but it's a pretty iconic outfit of hers, and seeing that blended with the 80s theme is like just awesome. Like really, really beautiful artwork for the advertisements, which makes me even more excited. So I'm totally bummed that it's pushed out again.
I'm bummed as well. And I'm bummed for Patty Jenkins, the director, and bummed for the crew, because even before COVID, this movie was pushed out. This movie was supposed to come out December of 2019. And then before then, it was supposed to come out summer of 2019. This film has been done for a while. And we talked about this before, that, the 80s theme of it, it's been done a lot lately. I mean, like one of the signature sets in the trailer has been the 80s mall. And what did everybody say when they saw that trailer? They're like, just like the mall in Stranger Things, which this would have come out before Stranger Things season 3, and not have to worry about that comparison. So it just keeps on getting pushed, and I get it. There's movie schedules and everything, but
it sucks.
It does suck. But hey, Warner Brothers doesn't want to. Obviously, they're not going to put two big movies of their own right next to each other.
Right. They don't want the competition. They need them both to succeed and bring in money. So. Right,
and with limited capacity theaters, they need all the time they can get for Tenet to make money. And then likewise for Wonder Woman 84 to make money. So October 2nd, please don't push it out anymore.
Right.
I mean, we understand why you're pushing it out, but hopefully it doesn't get pushed out too much. Yeah.
Right.
Skipping to this last image here that kind of got cut off a little bit. Godzilla versus King Kong was supposed to come out in November of this year. It's been pushed out to November of 2021.
Oh, wow. That's a big push.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people were speculating how much demand there was for this movie anyway, because the second Godzilla movie did not perform very well.
Yeah.
I went to see it with your husband, and we were kind of disappointed, not to mention the IMAX sound was dialed up to like 15. So I walked out of there with a straight up headache. But
I remember.
I even tried to rewatch this recently with Maddie, and I fell asleep on the couch, and she ended up like just turning it off because she was bored with it. It was for a giant, action film with Godzilla versus all these monsters. It was kind of boring.
Yeah, like not enough monster fights, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like my issue with the first one of those films that they put out. Like, I was really excited because, Godzilla. Like, who doesn't love Godzilla? Everything going on, giant monsters fighting. And then it's just like this big of the story. And, like, the rest is focused on people. It's like, great. I get it. People, cool. But no, give me the fighting monsters.
Yeah.
And so I think Yeah, I can agree. I don't know what the hype is going to be around this one.
I mean, there was definitely more monster fighting in the second Godzilla movie, but the human characters were just so stupid. Like the plot around the human characters was just bad.
Yeah.
And Kong, me and you saw Kong together. I enjoyed Kong.
Yeah.
And, everybody's been speculating Kong was based kind of like around Vietnam or right after Vietnam. So Kong's supposed to have been growing all this time. I still can't imagine he's going to be as big as Godzilla, though.
Like,
Godzilla's so big.
Has this been now? I'm sure my husband would know the answer to this. I don't know where he's at, but have they done? Is this like an iconic pairing of Godzilla and King Kong? Yeah.
So they've done this before.
They've done a lot of it. Okay, I didn't know that because like unlike my husband, I'm not a undying love for Godzilla, but I do enjoy giant monsters destroying things and whatever. But I didn't know if it was a classic pairing or not.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. There was a 1962 film, King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Okay.
So it's a remake, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, got pushed out a year. They haven't even put out a second poster for this, so they haven't spent any money on advertising. So, this happens all the time that we don't always hear about a movie getting pushed out. So it's not that big of a deal, and I don't think people were crazy waiting to see it. But a lot of people were looking forward to seeing Bond, No Time to Die, which is apparently the last Daniel Craig Bond movie.
It was the last one.
Yeah.
And the one before that, right?
Well, and especially the last one, he was like very vocal. I think he said something along the lines of, I would rather slit my wrists than be James Bond again.
Ooh, he did not.
He did say that. Yeah.
I'm surprised they put him in another movie then.
Oh, they did. And I guarantee you they paid him a lot of money. I mean, apparently they paid him a lot of money, but this was supposed to come out on April 10th. Then COVID dropped, and so now they pushed it out to they pushed it out to November 25th. Well, now that Godzilla and King Kong has been pushed out a year, they have backed this movie up a few days to come out on Thanksgiving weekend. And this is interesting because typically big films don't do well on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of. I see how that would be a hard push for a big movie. I mean, the focus around Thanksgiving, a lot of people are more interested in the football games and, that kind of thing than going to the movies. So that kind of surprises me a little bit. But then again, with it being such a crazy year, maybe they're assuming that people are going to be like, no, screw staying at home. Let's go do something. So,
I think that's the gamble, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, it could work out in their favor. But it's interesting to pick that weekend, I would say.
Yeah, there's a few big holiday weekends that are profitable for movies, but like most
Christmas
of them have been,
isn't that usually a pretty
Christmas tends to
good
be
one? Yeah, a good.
Yeah, but earlier in the year and over the summer,
right?
But a lot of those dates have been, wiped off the board with what's been going on. So I think that's just the gamble. I think they're going to. Plus, there's just not a lot of films. We're talking about 4 films that have moved right now. Unlike a normal year, there's not, 5 other films coming out those weeks as well. So even if it's not a huge difference, they're still probably going to make a lot of money. So, but yeah, it's definitely a gamble. It's interesting. But hey, they probably just feel like, what's the hurt? Yeah.
Yeah.
So new dates on those. We'll see if any of those change. Hopefully they don't. But at least Tenet's still coming out in July, and that's not being pushed out anymore. Because I am really stoked about that movie. I think that could be amazing. Oh yeah, and one more thing. So we did get a sneak peek of Cheetah, who's going to be in Wonder Woman. we've been wondering what she's going to look like in the film. Who is this actress again? She's an SNL person, Kristen Wiig, and I love her so much.
That's Kristen Wiig.
Yeah.
Like I almost didn't. Now that you say that, I remember her in the trailers. But it like just looking at her like doesn't look like Kristen Wiig to me.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people wonder because, like in the trailers, you just see her get up over here with a lot of cat skin things, and you're like, so are they just going in that direction? Is she not actually going to be Cheetah in the movie? Yeah, this is a big leap. I think for the most part, a lot of the things in the first movie were pretty grounded. So to see a character like this, which is more kind of, what you see in some other superhero properties. It's kind of a loop. Yeah. So hopefully she pulls it off because I like Kristen Wiig, but I haven't seen her in a role like this before.
Me either.
But I trust Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins has some skill. So as a director. So I think if she thought this worked, then it probably worked.
Yeah. I mean, just one more thing to look forward to. When it finally comes out.
So we're going to talk about some movie anniversaries this week. One of the bigger ones this week was Dick Tracy turned 30.
Tracy, 30.
Turned 30. It came out on June 15th, 1990. How
does that make you feel old? It makes me feel a little bit old.
So yeah,
30.
I grew up on Dick Tracy. I got a big book of his comics somewhere, but I can't find it. It must be downstairs. It's been a comic since the 1930s. This comic's been around since before Batman, since before might be before Superman even. It's a very classic comic that's just kind of been around for a while, and Walt Disney made a movie based off it in 1990 that did not do very well, but a lot of people enjoyed it. We had Warren Beatty was Dick Tracy. You had Al Pacino was in there. You even had Madonna in there. They kind of tried to have as much of Dick Tracy
star power.
Yeah. A lot of people in there. Do you remember this film?
I do and I don't. I remember loving it because I remember Dick Tracy. I mean, and I didn't read the comics, so but it's been a long time. But I mean, what's not to love about Dick Tracy? There's mobsters. There's like detective stuff going on, and lots of action. Even some of that, like tech with his watch.
That's right. Yes. Cool watch.
So, I just think that was a big draw for me. Again, being like total tomboy into all the action type stuff. Like I remember loving Dick Tracy, but it's been so long since I've seen the film. I probably haven't seen it since the 90s. How bad is that for loving it?
I mean, you and me both. He was definitely the man in the yellow hat for me before Curious George came along. I knew about Dick Tracy first. And man, they went all out with some of these characters to try to show them on the screen. Well, hey, let's watch the trailer for this. I found the original theatrical trailer.
Yeah, let's do it.
I just want to see how this looks. Gosh, Al Pacino looks so weird. Let's check this out. Old school Disney.
That's why I loved it already.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that nose.
I know, right?
Out of the headlines. I'm rubbing him out.
Oh yeah, it had the kid from Hook.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if he was in any other movie, but he was in this and Hook.
Not the bad, big boy, not the bad. I know, and I'm gonna miss you. All's fair in love and business.
Pretty violent for a Disney
I'm
film.
always on. Mine.
Yeah, but
What's the line up? This territory is my territory now. Everything he owns, I own.
Move in and take your positions. Okay, boys, let's go.
Got that watch.
yeah.
Of attempting to bribe an officer of the law.
She does some nifty undercover work. Crazy, doesn't she?
I mean, think of the outfits for Disney here.
I know.
Let's go. Good luck.
They got that classic yellow and that classic red. They were going for that aesthetic for sure.
Yeah, very dark, like aesthetically. I mean, actually filmed dark movie.
Warren Beatty.
Dick Tracy.
Tracy. And I love how they went with like the comic book art type artwork like that. Oh,
kind of like Sin City did. Yeah, they really went for that aesthetic, and they've nailed it.
They nailed it. I love it.
Some people thought they went too hard with the villains, but they look like they do in the comics. So, good on them. Man, Al Pacino is just Al Pacino with bad makeup. This makes me want to watch the movie for sure.
I know, right? We
so
should.
long.
We should watch it.
We should. That'd be a fun night.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. That turned 30. So that's
30.
I feel like that was a different era of Disney too. They did a lot of movies that probably they wouldn't do nowadays,
or at least not under their original Disney name, probably under a different film company that they own because they own the world, I'm sure.
Right. But I mean, they did this. They did like Rocketeer. That was another comic-based movie that I really loved.
Was Roger Rabbit, Saving Roger Rabbit, was that one of theirs?
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That one?
Framed Roger Rabbit, yeah.
I can't imagine. That was a Touchstone Pictures movie. Yeah,
I just remember that coming out, and that was kind of like, I don't know why. I just think of Dick Tracy, the mobsters, and
sure.
But
well, I wish I would have done my homework and watched this so we could talk more about it. But that's all I can say is I remember it. I love the trailer. I love the look, but I can't talk more about it after that.
It's been so long. Yeah, I'm with you.
So happy 30th, Dick Tracy. Congratulations for being around that long. I wonder, I haven't seen I haven't even seen this on Blu-ray. I wonder if they have any plans on releasing this
for
in like HD format, sometime this year or something like that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I would own it for sure. But a little younger, another big birthday is Batman Begins, turns 15.
15. Damn.
Yeah. Came out on June 15th. Let's see, what was 15 years ago? In 2005? June 15th, 2005, right after we graduated high school, this movie came out.
Yeah.
And what a hell of a movie this was.
So good.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about this film, but let's watch the trailer for this.
Oh yay!
I got the original theatrical trailer. Let's play that.
Such a good film.
Tell us, Mr. Wayne. What do you fear?
How do you know my name?
The world is too small for something like Bruce Wayne to disappear. Your parents' death was not your fault.
My parents deserve justice. I cannot let that pass.
If you make yourself more than just a man, then you become something else entirely.
Yes.
A
legend.
A legend. Oh, the visuals in this.
And the music.
It takes to show the
That's
people
perfect.
The best Alfred there ever has been.
Bruce?
Rachel?
You were gone a long time.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She was in this.
Things are worse than ever down here. What chance does Gotham have when the good people do nothing?
Didn't they switch her out in the franchise?
Don't make survival suit for advanced infantry. Kevlar utility harness, gas-powered magnetic grapple gun.
Love the gadgets.
Oh, so many fun toys. I liked the Batmobile.
I spent a lot of time being scared for you. I heard you were back. But the man I loved, the man who vanished, never came back.
He's here. Who? The Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Murphy.
God, that must be destroyed. Gotham isn't beyond saving. It's over.
This is an epic trailer. I love this so much.
It makes me want to go watch it like right now.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Guy dresses up like a bat clearly has issues.
June 15th, 2005. That was awesome when that came out.
Movie.
Oh no, what happened here? Had an epic cast. Look at that cast. I love everybody that was in there. You had was Commissioner Gordon even in that trailer? You had
No, I don't think he was.
why am I blanking on his name? Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon.
Love him as Commissioner Gordon, like really.
Mm-hmm. You had Liam Neeson as the fake out. He was actually playing Ra's al Ghul. Which we've seen in Iron Man 3, where a very famous Iron Man Asian villain was made into a white guy. People were not happy about that. No one seemed to mind, at least for Batman Begins.
Maybe it's because it's Liam Neeson and he just like embodies like that type of character. I mean,
pretty epic. Yeah.
That's my only reasoning is it's Liam Neeson. If they picked anybody else, there would probably have been an uproar about it. But
well, and he was mysterious and he was great, and fans of Star Wars that saw him briefly as a kind of a leader and a Jedi training somebody in episode 1. This was like, oh, you wanted more of that, but with a twist. Now he's training Batman. Lucius Fox was a new character that we haven't seen in a Batman movie before, and he was kind of like the tech guy.
Yeah.
Alfred still took care of Batman, but to think that Alfred would be also like a tech genius was always kind of a stretch, and so they brought in Lucius Fox, and of course Lucius wasn't stupid. He figured it out pretty quickly that his tech was being used on the street by Batman. But great. So the person that played the love interest, and thankfully we didn't play one of the later trailers that had like a pop song in it, but you had what's her name? Gosh darn it, Katie Holmes in here, and she was they switched her out for Maggie Gyllenhaal in the sequel, The Dark Knight, but I didn't think she was terrible in this. But I'm glad Maggie was in the second one. I think she did
really well. I just hate when they switch a main character like that.
Yeah.
In the middle of, because you get used to someone's personification of that character. But they both did really well in the roles, I think.
Well, and half the time when that happens, they usually then put that character so far in the background that it's almost not noticeable. But I think, and I'm not sure, I mean, it could be more of, I can't believe it would be just scheduling things, but Rachel Dawes was a huge part of the second film, and so maybe someone was just like, we just need a stronger actress to play this part. They could have easily like pushed her into the background, but they didn't. The guy that played Tom Wilkinson played Carmine Falcone. He was like the mobster. He was great. I love him as an actor. I love that they had Falcone in this movie. The guy that played Thomas Wayne, he was a great Thomas Wayne. He was, unlike the newest Joker movie, Thomas Wayne was a very likable character in this film.
Yeah.
You felt for him when he died. You thought that he was looking out for the people that weren't as lucky as he was. Actually, this was most of the movie. Actually, the whole movie, we didn't have a Commissioner Gordon. He was just like a captain in this film or something like that. He wasn't promoted to commissioner until The Dark Knight. Gary Oldman was. But apparently Gary Oldman was originally supposed to be the villain. He was going to play Liam Neeson's role. Yeah.
I don't see it. I
don't see it either.
So good as Commissioner Gordon. And Liam Neeson is just so perfect for that role if you're going to, go that route. But
well, Gary Oldman's played a lot of villains in the past, like Fifth Element and everything. So he was originally set to play Ra's al Ghul, and Chris Cooper was supposed to be Gordon. But Chris Cooper of American Beauty and October Sky and Bourne Identity, when he turned down the role, then Nolan was like, you know what? I'm tired of Gary Oldman playing a bad guy. I'm going to have him play Gordon, and then brought on Liam Neeson as Roz. So that's interesting. Can you imagine? That would have been a whole different franchise.
Way different.
Yeah. I just love Gary Oldman in these movies.
Me too.
Cillian Murphy over here plays Scarecrow.
So good.
Yeah.
I think this is the first film I had seen him in. And then
no, you
really
had to have seen 28 Days Later before this.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. I did see 28 Days Later. But I might have not seen that until college, actually.
Oh, really? Well, that's possible.
Yeah. So, and we definitely would have seen this right when it came out. So, I do think it's the first film that I had seen him in. I really enjoyed his portrayal. He just really does well in the manic moments.
Yes.
I mean, he just is like total villain, just oozes. I mean, yeah. And so I think the next film that I saw him in was Red Eye, where he plays kind of a similar type role in that you see him in this like calm, collected, you expect that's how he's going to be. And then like he switches to that crazy, scary, like manic, but smart manic. It's so good.
He's got those crazy eyes for sure. He has excellent face acting.
Yes. Really good facial expression. And it's just like he did so good in this movie, really.
And he actually originally auditioned to be Batman. They have audition roles of him you can find it on YouTube. And they just thought, he's not what we're looking for in frame and just in personality. But Nolan asked him back to be Dr. Jonathan Crane, and I think that's
smart move. Well. Yeah, really smart move. I feel like did so well in that role,
and really ballsy all the way around. I mean, to have two major Batman villains in this film, the first film of the new. At this point, they didn't know this was going to be a trilogy. There was no plans for this to be a trilogy, and they went with two villains that have never been on camera before. Or at least the villains, the characters have never been in a Batman film before. So only people who have read Batman comics, which sure there are a lot of, but there's not as many as those that haven't. So most people didn't know who these villains were. So it was ballsy to go that route instead of somebody as popular as the Joker. Everybody knows who the Joker is.
Yeah, the Joker or Penguin or something that they've already done.
Right.
I agree, but I mean, as somebody who again, didn't read the comics. I did know who Scarecrow was. I knew he was a Batman villain.
Okay.
But I had seen like all the ones from the 90s and stuff. So not that he was in it, like you said, but I did know as a non-comic reader who he was. And maybe because this was not, intended to be the first of a trilogy, that's why they wanted to put more than one villain in it. Kind of to really capitalize on the Batman universe. Why not have more than one villain? And they meshed it really well. I feel like in this film, it wasn't like you only got so much of one villain, and it was like, why even put them in there? They both had big, significant roles, and really did well of meshing in this film.
I agree. It was really well balanced. Usually, when you get more than two or more than one, sometimes it's just all over the place in terms of balancing. They did really well, and that's just a credit to Nolan and to granted, Nolan wasn't a huge Batman fan. He's just a good storyteller, but he brought on David S. Goyer as the Batman knowledge person to help him write this. So that's just a credit to good writing. They really balanced it out well. And, I'm sure they had hoped that this would turn into something, but it wasn't like there is now where they like announce a franchise before the first movie even comes out. And this movie ends with the Gordon giving Batman the calling card of the next villain, which was the Joker.
Yeah.
And even if they never did Dark Knight, this would have served as a sufficient prequel to the 1989 Batman movie with Joker. Because before Batman Begins, we'd never seen an origin movie for Batman. And that's just what this was, an origin movie. When Batman 1989 came out, you had the Joker. Batman was already Batman,
That's right.
So this could have easily just worked as that. But thank God they didn't do that. They went on to do the most epic Joker ever, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And really, they did two villains in that film too. Although Two-Face was only really a villain for, this much of it. But
he kind of capped it off there, but it was his progression to become that.
Which was also really interesting.
But as a starter, this was a very solid film. I love this film. I love the music for this film. It's a great. I was listening to it today. It's a great soundtrack. Who did the music for this? Hans Zimmer did the music. Hans Zimmer and James using James Newton Howard's some of his themes as well. I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy combination right there.
Right, and Hans Zimmer,
excellent composers, and it shows. It shows. It's a very beautiful theme.
The music is, really helps make a movie. A lot of people don't pay attention to the music because, it's just there. But if you take out music from a film, you would notice. Right. And like having a score like this score was just fantastic for this film. It really accentuated what they wanted the film to be. And it was just so well done. I love the score on this movie.
Yeah,
really good.
It's held up. This movie holds up. It's 15 years old. I think it's just as watchable now as it was back then.
Oh yeah.
And that's also because Nolan really wanted his films to be grounded. He filmed a lot of it in Chicago and stuff like that. They got bigger as they went along, but they still were pretty grounded. And that's a credit to the acting. I mean, Christian Bale, we barely even talked about him. He did fantastic in this role. He made certain choices that were different. He got bulked up for sure. The raspy voice.
The raspy voice. But
there's a famous interview that I saw because he was coming off of The Machinist, which he was crazy tiny for, and he packed on a crap ton of muscle for this.
Well, he had to. Yeah, the machinist, man, he got so skinny for that.
Right. But then they told him to stop, like, because he was getting too big.
Yeah.
And there's somebody said this is Batman, not Fat Man. Like we,
well, I mean, we could go back to the old films from like the 50s or whatever.
True, Adam West. He was kind of a little.
I mean, he was a little
pudgy,
bigger of a Batman, so I mean, bigger in muscle.
Yeah,
that's fine. But yeah, he really did well as Batman. I enjoyed his version of Batman. We've all seen a lot of Batmans throughout the years, and I think probably, and it could be because it was a Nolan film and how well this film was done, that I kind of lean on Christian Bale as more of my Batman than even some of the 90s films, which please don't hate me for that, because I do love like George Clooney and all of those for their Batmans as well. But this film was just so well done. And I loved so much about it. And maybe it is because it was a origin Batman story and you see how he was built. And so therefore you really build even more of a connection with the character throughout the film that made it. But yeah, really, really love Christian Bale as Batman.
I love everything about it. They Warner Brothers took a gamble on Christopher Nolan for sure. I think there's a lot of specifically comic book related movies in the last 10 years that we've seen studios get involved. Sometimes they bring on certain filmmakers, like Edgar Wright was brought on for Ant-Man, and then they took him off of that. We see a lot of filmmakers coming and going. Josh Trank with the Fantastic Four reboot, and then having studio interference. Zack Snyder with Justice League. There's been a lot. We've just heard a lot of that storyline of bringing on directors. This doesn't apply to Zack Snyder, but maybe that haven't handled a property like this before, and then the studio coming in and messing with their vision after kind of proclaiming, hey, we're bringing on this guy. And not Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan, he had 3 films before this. He had Following, which was a very small film that he did. He had Memento, which was a very interesting concept film that he did. His biggest film, his most mainstream film, was Insomnia, which is so crazy because I forgot that was a Christopher Nolan film, and I actually watched that last night because I couldn't sleep. But he did Insomnia with Insomnia had the late Robert Williams in it, or not Robin Williams, and who is the other, Al Pacino in it. Is a really interesting film. But you think of those 3 films, and then you think of such a big property like Batman.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would entrust a property like that now that comic book films are so lucrative.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have made that decision now compared to back then.
And really, I don't think you would have gotten as beautiful of a film without doing that. And I think that it's really the loss of some of these comic book movies for not going along with somebody like this. Not saying that they're not good. I love my comic book movies. But something like this is just just so well done. I know I keep saying that, but it's just different. You can tell the difference between a movie like this and one that, the studios come in and messed with or whatever. And
it took a lot of trust, a lot of balls, and a lot of trust, and thankfully Christopher Nolan paid off, and he's paid off continually for the WB or for Warner Brothers. I mean, he just continues to give them hits. So good on him. Good on everybody involved with this movie, and way to launch a franchise. So that turns 15 this week, and funny enough, we forgot to talk. Well, we did talk about them. Great villains. Good job. Clap, clap. Sorry about that, guys. Forgot your slides were there. Another Batman movie has an anniversary this week. Actually, today, Batman Forever turns a quarter of a century, 25.
Damn.
This movie came out 25 years ago. That's so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, this movie came out in 1995, June 16th, 1995. It made its U.S. debut. Wow. And not as liked as Batman Begins, for sure. I mean, it has its issues. This is a Joel Schumacher film. It's not as unliked as its sequel, Batman and Robin. But this was definitely a different time for comic book films. This was before X-Men. This was before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man started to take things more seriously. This was, let's make it big. Let's make it bombastic. Let's make it colorful and over the top. Let's hire people like Jim
Carrey. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, right. Do it for you right there.
And go big with it. Let's make the Batmobile super weird looking so we can sell more toys. Not to say that comic book movies aren't still toy driven now. You know, there's a reason why Captain America has a different suit every movie so they can sell toys. But this was a really different film. Let's watch the trailer for this. And we'll talk about it a little bit.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
I love Jim Carrey.
I do too. Zoom in on the crotch.
Got it.
Got those boots. Rocking them boots.
Wings on that thing. I liked this Batmobile. I thought it was cool.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
The one-liners.
The 90s movies.
In the flesh.
Young Val Kilmer.
Handbag. Yes. My invention beams any TV signal directly into the human brain.
Mind manipulation, tampering with
people will do that now. You know,
that's true.
Just raises too many questions.
Close your eyes and you get Netflix. Be all over that.
I'll send you a riddle.
The Riddler. I will help you solve the greatest riddle of all.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Who is?
Okay.
Lock.
My place. Midnight.
Poison Ivy?
No, that was Nicole Kidman. That was the love interest.
Who played Poison Ivy in the other film?
Uma Thurman.
Wayne Enterprise.
I don't know why that came to mind.
Yeah, Batman gets down in this movie. He gets some late night calls to Nicole Kidman.
Party with a bang!
I loved that part.
That was a really cool shot. I remember that shot in the movie.
Yeah, right. This one too.
Gosh, these are long trailers. His was better.
The difference? Showmanship.
They're showing a lot in this movie, but they haven't shown one big piece of this movie yet. Are they going to show it?
Signal.
You called me here for this. It was not a beeper.
Oh yeah, Nicole
You can give it a
Kidman.
try.
They sure dressed her up in this movie.
They really did.
They dressed some other.
They dressed her down.
Barrymore was in this movie. They dressed her up too.
It keeps me safe. I'm jogging at night.
Gosh,
Oh, that.
really? There we go.
There he is.
Hey,
Batboy, Nightwing. What's a good sidekick name?
Nightwing.
Oh, Batman.
All right, train me. Let me be your partner.
How young these guys are.
Batman theme.
Blast him!
His face.
I love it.
Robin.
I'm a part of this, whether you like it or not.
Haha. They did that intentionally.
Batman Forever.
Mm.
That was a trailer produced by Tim Burton, but it was not a Tim Burton film.
Which you can tell.
Right. But the last couple were, which a lot of people were like, oh, interesting. Burton's not behind this one. And Burton had done the first two. And people had issues with that. They felt like the first one was iconic because it was Batman, but even still, it was Burton's Batman. And then the second one was iconic because you had Penguin and you had the amazing Catwoman in there, but it was Burton's Batman. Again, it was it had Burton all over it,
Well, every Burton film has Burton all over it. You can instantly tell.
Oh, for sure.
Burton's.
But I guess they had, from a studio standpoint, they had multiple conversations with, you need to dial back the Tom Burton-ness of this.
That's not.
So they chose to go in a different direction with this. They brought on Joel Schumacher to direct this one, and then he also directed the sequel. And they brought on a new Batman as well. Originally, they were going to go with some other people. Ethan Hawke was considered.
Oh, your man
Batman. My man crush, yes. I love me some Ethan Hawke. He was considered for this. William Baldwin was considered for this, but instead they brought in Val Kilmer. And I think the reason they did that was I am pretty sure he did The Saint, which is another classic character. Did he do The Saint before this? No, he did The Saint after this. So I'm not sure well, he did Top Gun in 1986 and he was legendary in Top Gun.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, look at him. This is the more classic Batman suit. This looks more like the 1989. He looks like a damn good Batman in that. I mean, everybody gives Tom Clooney shit for the Batman nipples. This suit had nipples as well.
I mean, yep. Even Robin
prominent. Yeah, Robin does. This was what he ended up with later in the film, which I think is a little much. I love this. I always love that classic yellow Batman emblem. I didn't mind Val Kilmer as Batman. I thought he was a great Batman. I thought he was a very solemn, tall, good-looking guy. I thought that was one of the more forgivable parts of this movie.
Yeah, he was more like refined Bruce Wayne. There wasn't like, I don't know how else to say it. Refined really gets it. I mean,
he was.
And I don't know. I'm on the maybe the other side of the fence where I actually really liked this movie when it came out. I loved Jim Carrey's Riddler. I loved Two-Face, although he's a very comedic Two-Face. And I don't know too much about the comic-based character, but it seemed like out of place. I don't know. As Two-Face, I feel like Two-Face is more of coming from a political Harvey Dent, for him to be that comedic is strange. But at the time when I saw this as a kid in the 90s, like, you eat that up because it's funny, it's fun. They're doing all kinds of chaos, and I love Jim Carrey. Was really big at that time, doing all kinds of movies, and he made it really fun for the younger fan base that was kind of just getting into for me, I was just kind of getting into Batman. And this, coming off of the Tim Burton movies, loved this compared to those. Because they were good. I can appreciate them more probably now as an adult than I did as a kid. But this to me was more what the younger me was looking for in a Batman movie. You know, it had fun, it had action, it had cool tech stuff, it had the car. I mean, I loved the car. Had Robin, which I hadn't seen yet before, I don't think.
Yeah, this was the first time you had Robin in there since the Adam West 50s movie. Yeah, 60s movie.
So,
it definitely was more family friendly because I think Batman was Batman R? I know Batman Returns was. Let's see, what was Batman rated? Batman.
I doubt it was R. I would say it was probably more on the
PG. It was PG-13, but it was a hard PG-13, and I think Batman Returns pushed that envelope even more so. But somebody was clearly like, okay, we got to take this gothic kid out of the equation and put some color in this movie, because they doubled down on the color in this movie.
Yeah, they did.
They went for a very comical version of the Riddler and a very comical version of Two-Face, which was interesting because Billy D. Williams, who everybody knows from Star Wars, he was Lando Calrissian in Star Wars. He actually played Harvey Dent in the 1989 Batman. Harvey Dent is Two-Face before he was Two-Face, and so he was actually set to play Two-Face, but they decided to do a white guy in there, so they brought in Tommy Lee Jones. And I love Tommy Lee Jones, but he definitely was not his normal reserved self.
Yes, a very different Tommy Lee Jones in this movie, for sure.
I felt like at times he was trying to one-up Jim Carrey, and I heard there was some beef on set between them two, which is interesting. But he was definitely over the top.
Yeah, I can see that coming through in the film, really. For sure. Because he was, I mean, they both were outlandish, but you really can't compete with Jim Carrey. I mean, if you're trying to fight him on that, you're going to lose, in my personal opinion. But not to say that his character wasn't likable. For me now, though, going back and watching this, probably a little too played up.
Oh, for sure. They definitely went hard on that. Especially considering granted, like if you've seen the old Batman animated cartoons, the Riddler was always kind of funny and everything, but in some of the comic arcs, he's really intense, and he's really smart and calculated, and he's a pretty good villain, and he's a pretty good bat.
Right? Does he have a science background in all?
I don't think he does. I don't know. I mean, I think that was something they threw in for this, but so there was a lot of other casting in this that could have happened. Sandra Bullock and Linda Hamilton were both considered for the love interest. Linda Hamilton from Terminator. I just couldn't imagine. She's just such a badass for her to be just some sexy side piece.
Right.
It wasn't much to that character. No offense to Nicole Kidman, but it wasn't. Wasn't no Rachel Dawes, that's for certain.
Yeah.
So but Nicole Kidman ended up getting that. Who else? Let's see. Before they cast Tommy Lee Jones, Clint Eastwood and Martin Sheen were also considered for that role.
Those would have been very different.
Yeah. Could you imagine Clint Eastwood being in that role? I can't imagine him playing it that way.
Not at all. I can't imagine either of them playing it anywhere near of the how Tommy Lee Jones did. Yeah. That would have been interesting to see.
That would have been very interesting. Robin Williams was considered to play the Riddler at one point, but he had contractual issues with Jumanji, so he wasn't able to be there.
That would have been interesting too.
Before Jim Carrey was cast as it, Michael Jackson also lobbied hard to be the Riddler.
Really? Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Not sure how to do that.
Yeah. Who else? Who else went out for the role? John Malkovich went out for it. Kelsey Grammer went out for it. Steve Martin went out for it. Steve Martin's a comedian. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
And actually, Mark Hamill was probably the closest to almost get the role of the Riddler. Yes.
Isn't that strange? Because he is the Joker, right, in the animated series?
And that's why he wasn't in the movie, because apparently he had contract issues because he was at that time still voicing the Joker in the animated series. So because of that, he couldn't be in the live action movie.
Huh.
So yeah, again, all of these great actors, but and it would have definitely been a different movie for sure.
Yeah.
And then as far as the new character of Robin before Christopher O'Donnell was cast, we had people like Leonardo DiCaprio being considered for the role.
Yeah.
Who was very young.
Yeah.
Damon was also very young and being considered. Even Christian Bale was considered for the role.
Wouldn't that have been funny?
Right. And Scott Speedman was also considered for the role, and most people know him from the Underworld movies.
Great movies, by the way.
Yeah. So I think I like Christopher O'Donnell, O'Donnell as in the role. I think he was great.
I agree. Really likable character in this movie.
He was a good match. He talked back,
sassy.
He challenged. He's sassy. He looked in shape, he looked like he could kick some ass, and I like it.
I really liked this version of Robin. I mean, like I said before, this would have been my Robin that I was introduced to, because I didn't watch the older films before this. So this would have been who I saw as Robin. I thought he did really good. I think he played that kind of like, young punk that needed something and to kind of find his life, really. And I just think he did a really good job in this role. He really fit what I would have been looking for in a Robin.
Yeah,
that was older. I mean, typically though, wasn't Robin supposed to be fairly young? He's more like an older Robin than you would have typically seen. Is that right?
Yeah. Does it say how old he is? I'm trying to see here,
because
he's definitely like young 20s at least. Yeah, he's not a teenager in this movie for sure. Or if he's supposed to be, he certainly doesn't look like a teenager.
For some reason I thought he was supposed to be like 17 to 19.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably a good route to go, because we do see him with his parents in the beginning. He's part of that circus. And but yeah, I think he worked really well in the character. I think he was written well. He was written better in this movie, because I felt like the next movie was just one-liner after one-liner after pun after pun, and I just didn't care for him or most of anything in the next movie.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't really like the Robin as much in the following movie as I did. I remember being sad that they switched him out. When the next one came out. Yeah.
But Val Kilmer had, I guess, impressed the director with his role in Tombstone, and he really pulled it together. The only other people that we didn't mention, Drew Barrymore was one of Two-Face's assistants in this film, and she was. I didn't include this picture because she's dressed kind of risque in the movie. She walks around in a lot of white lingerie that I noticed as a kid.
Sure.
Yeah, she's in this movie as well. Very throwaway part. But yeah, the villains were over the top. They were very colorful, but I think most people liked it or accepted it more than the next one, because the next one, I mean, they went threefold. They had Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. They had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. They had,
I forgot.
they had Bane. He was a third villain that was like a mute, like freak accident. That he was dwindled down to just some beefy dude that walked around with Poison Ivy. And that movie was just terrible, and it did really bad. People just didn't like it, and they've hated it more over time. I think this film is a little more forgivable when compared to that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, I mean, Schumacher was trying to get another film made after this. He had a movie called Batman Triumphant, but they instead decided to turn that down and focused on Batman Begins. So this was the start of Schumacher's Batman career. The next film was The End, and it was pretty much because of Joel Schumacher that we got Batman Begins. So
thank you, Joel Schumacher.
Yeah. So, but I could watch this film. I liked it. It's definitely a film for its time. But yeah, I would have liked to see like a Christopher Nolan take on the Riddler. I think
I would love to see Riddler in in an upcoming movie. I really enjoyed the Jim Carrey version of this villain, and I now, like I said, as an adult, and hearing more about what he was like in the comics, I would really be interested in seeing that version of the Riddler. And we've had an amazing Joker. That's very difficult to top, really. I don't think you can. And we've had a couple Two-Faces, and I think what's his name from who played Harvey Dent in the newer Batman series. I can't think of his name.
Gosh darn it! What's his name?
I can see his face. Can't think of his name.
Aaron something, isn't it? Two-Face. What's his name? Aaron Eckhart.
Yep. Dustin just yelled it on the stairs.
Aaron Eckhart. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, babe. I really enjoyed his version of Harvey Dent, and seeing like that more serious kind of play of it versus this version. So I think I would really, really like to see the Riddler and what could be done with that character. Because like I said, the Joker's been done a lot. Love the Joker. I mean, not saying anything bad about that, but it would be nice to bring back some of these characters that we haven't seen in a long time, since the 90s, even like the Penguin or something. I would be interested to see a non-Burton version of, some of those characters as well.
Well, I mean, this a lot of people look back as this is the beginning of the decline for Batman before we had Nolan bringing it back up to where it went. But at the same time, this movie did make a lot of money. It was nominated for some Academy Awards. It broke some opening weekend records that was previously held by Jurassic Park. It was the 6th highest grossing film of that year. It was big. It had a hit soundtrack. It had "Kissed by a Rose" by Seal.
Yeah, great song.
Soundtrack. But there's something we're hearing a lot about. We're getting the Snyder cut of Justice League, and maybe we're getting the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. I would love to see the original cut for this movie, because according to Joel Schumacher, this movie, which ended up being an hour and 20 minutes, so not even an hour and a half, the original length was closer to 2 hours and 40 minutes. So
really,
you're talking another hour.
That's a
and
lot.
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So they cut out half the film. That's interesting.
Yes. I mean, granted, this happens all the time. There's always an assembly cut that's crazy long. but he says, I mean, he refers to it like I mean, again, this is like just like the Snyder cut. It wasn't done or anything like that. But his original cut of the film was closer to 2 hours and 40 minutes, and he says it was darker as a film in themes. And there was talk of an extended cut of this movie being released back in 2005 for its 10-year anniversary. But then they scrapped that. So yeah, there's one of the scenes is this, and it looks stupid, but you can actually find this scene on YouTube, and it's done pretty interestingly. But it's basically Batman hallucinating in his cave and seeing just this giant bat, and it's symbolism, and he's coming to terms with who he is and his fear and stuff like that. It's apparently there was a lot more symbolism and a lot more darker themes in the original cut.
I would be really interested to see that then.
Right? I so would. I would love that.
Yeah. I mean, just because to see how comedic this version came out and to know that there was more meat to it. I would be really interested to see what that was like.
Yeah. And especially if it's being said that it was a heavier, darker film.
Yeah.
When we know this to be such a campy film, you know, I don't think it'll ever come out. If it hasn't come out now, it probably never will.
We can hope though.
Yeah. But that will be interesting for me to see. I would definitely be down for that. So happy 25th anniversary, Batman Forever. Oh, and I forgot, I actually have the original Batman Forever movie magazine.
Wow.
So
impressed.
Yeah, it's in good condition too, and it's got a lot of stupid stuff in it. But yeah, this was part of my childhood as much as I'm sure it was part of yours. And it's kind of fun to reminisce, you know.
Yeah.
So
I like want to watch all these movies now.
Right.
Like,
we should. Like we just did that Rocky marathon, you know.
No.
Now we should do a Batman marathon. Like start with Adam West.
Or first we watch Dick Tracy, since that's a one-off.
Oh yeah.
And then a Batman film. Batman. All the way.
I would love to do a Dick Tracy thing. We've actually been talking about, for those listening, we've been talking about doing some more reactions as part of the N.A.P, the Nerf Herders Assemble podcast. The problem is that YouTube has a lot of restrictions on that. So we're playing around with the idea of maybe bringing on a Patreon account where we can put it through there. And if you want to be a part of that, you can, and then you can find that exclusive content. So like I'm going to be recording a watch of Gantz O tonight. I did put out an episode of I Don't Know Anime yesterday, talked about Gantz, the 2004 anime, and then the live action movies. Well, there's a more recent CGI film called Gantz O, and that'll be the last thing that I watch for Gantz. So I'm going to do that tonight, and then release an edited version of that on our channel here probably later this week. But I'm going to record the whole thing so that maybe we can put that out through the Patreon. So nice. For those listening, click like, click on the bell so you know when we go live next, when we drop another video next. Thank you for watching this. We're going to probably have at least one more episode this week. Mark is actually going to be on the podcast on Thursday. A friend that I met through Ali. He's
Mark, I know.
And the Mark, yeah.
Hey.
He's a fellow local author. So I'm going to bring him on Thursday while we wait for Seth to get back. So we'll see what we talk about then.
Y'all should watch that because that'll be good.
Yeah, he's.
I'll be watching, I'm sure.
He's a good match for my nerdiness, for sure, and he's a good writer. So we'll be talking about his book as well, and see if we can get some updates on his new book.
New project,
yeah. So, but thank you, Ali, for being on and for filling in. And
thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
I hope to have you on again in the future. I don't think we have to only have you on when Seth is out of town. So
sounds good to me. I'm always down. Maybe for an anime one, depending on what's going on down the road. I mean, we watch a lot of anime, so.
I know you do. I'm trying to catch up with people like you, honestly.
Well, I think you should watch Bleach now, although that's a giant undertaking.
Right. And for those hearing this, I have got a lot of series requests, and Gantz was a little easier because it was only 2 seasons, but that took me a lot longer. And then the review is a lot longer because there's a lot to cover. For right now, I'm trying to stick to anime films, just because it's a smaller commitment, and I can watch more and put out more videos about them. So for your recommendations, try to hit me up with some more anime films. And then sadly, some of the ones that I watch, you're just not into, Ali, because I know I can stomach a little more violent anime than you can sometimes.
Well, I know exactly which one you're referring to, and I even tried to watch another preview for it to be like, maybe I could be into this. I can't do it. I just can't do it. But.
And she's talking about Attack on Titan, and I will tell you, Ali, I have seen some anime that's more violent than that.
I have heard that you have, and I don't even know if it was really the violence that got me. I don't know what it was about that.
It was raw. It was very raw.
I think the animation of the Titans is just something about that is creepy as all get out.
It's definitely creepy. It's definitely disturbing for sure.
Yeah, I just could not get into that one. But
yeah,
there's another great ones, and we're gonna talk more about Bleach because I want you to get on that train so we can talk about it.
Well, I'll probably get on it just to watch it, because I do watch a lot of things on the side that it's not like I make a video for everything I watch. And
that's true.
And I did just finish Clone Wars and Rebels, and so I'm looking for something else to watch. So maybe I'll start watching Bleach. So,
please do,
because I think it's coming back, isn't it? Isn't it coming back for another season?
It is coming back next year.
Okay, so it's even more.
I think it's next year that it's coming back for the final arc of the comic or the manga series. And it's so good. Dustin and I, my husband and I, were super stoked watching the announcement. We're like, are they really going to bring it back? Because I'm late to the game on Bleach. I watched some anime in high school, middle school, but haven't gotten back into it until I met my husband. And he's kind of been introducing me to a lot of different ones. But so it hasn't been as long as wait for me as it has been for the fan base. And so this has been a big push for a long time. So we should watch it before it comes out, or maybe time it so that we can watch it together.
The new season together? Yeah, I'll have to research when it's supposed to come out. That actually gives me more of a reason to see it, because it's, especially with manga adaptations, it's an all too common thing for the anime to barely scratch the surface, or get canceled beforehand, or go in a totally different direction. Like Gantz, I got really interested into the concept, and it's a long manga series, but then they just cut off the anime, and in fact they ended it on their own with a weird capper for the series that has nothing to do with the books. And I was just like, oh, well, that's interesting. So that happens a lot with adaptions. And so the fact that this is apparently they're trying to finish it like the manga finished, that sounds promising to me. So, okay.
Yeah. And Bleach really follows, from what I hear, it follows the manga very, very well. I mean, they have their moments of, they'll have smaller filler arcs that, while they were waiting for the manga to release so that they start making the next piece of it.
Mhm.
But from what I hear, it follows the manga really well, and it's just a really good show. And we could keep talking about this, but I'm sure everybody, you want to save this for your anime series.
That's true. That's true.
But
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. Maybe I'll bring you back for my friend showed me Bleach if I end up watching it. So,
you will.
All
We're
right.
gonna work on it.
Well, thank you so much, Ali, for coming on, and thank you to everybody watching this after the fact. Please like, please subscribe, please press the bell, and stick around and watch another video with us. We appreciate your viewership. So, all righty. Well, that's another nap. We'll see you later. Oh, come on. I pressed the end broadcast.